Good morning to all of you and those following us from the Far East, and a nice afternoon to you too. Welcome to this virtual, extraordinary, I would say, annual conference 2020. This is part of the activity, is part of a longer activity which stretches into November. As many of you would know, when we have annual conferences linked to the EfVET conference, our workshops, we have also roundtables and the popular marketplace. Today we have the conference. We have speakers, as I will introduce in a few minutes. But on the 5th of November, we shall be organizing and the marketplace. So this is an invitation to everyone to join us even on the 5th of November and on the 19th of November, so that we will complete the whole cycle of what a EfVET conference, annual conference, is all about. The theme that we have chosen this year would not surprise many people, of course. The COVID-19 has hit the world, termed as a global pandemic by the World Health Organization in March 2020. Of course, this is not the first pandemic that has hit the world. Even in the modern world, we have experienced pandemics in 2003, SARS, but now we are faced with a much stronger enemy, an invisible enemy, which has had an impact on education and training, as in many other sectors. So COVID-19 beyond 2020, is it a new generation for vets? Is what we are proposing to discuss today with our invited speakers and with over 200 participants who have joined us this morning. So thank you for joining EfVET conference. We look forward to the discussion today, to an exchange of views on a challenge to all training providers around the world. And it is a big challenge because we cannot bank on the experience that we have had with previous pandemics. As training providers, this has taken us by surprise, and we had to find solutions very quickly. You cannot simply send students at home. You cannot simply send lecturers and teachers at home and do nothing about it. And so many of you, including lecturers and administrators, have taken it upon themselves to find means how to reach again their students, continue their academic studies and their training, and conclude the previous academic year so that we will start a fresh new academic year this year. I was one of those who was hoping that by summer we would defeat this invisible enemy. But as you know, the enemy has not yet been defeated. It is still an invisible but forceful enemy. It is disrupting in many ways our way of relating with each other. But thanks to technology, we have managed, and this is proof that this is happening, we have managed to keep contact with each other, contact with our staff, contact with our students. Well, to the question whether this is the same as before, I think the answer is very simple. And it is very simple because over these last 9 months, the only way we could prevent prevent ourselves and our staff and our students from getting COVID or from having a total disruption of their academic year has been the same methods used in the Middle Ages. In the Middle Ages, when there were pandemics, they wore masks. We all have masks all over the place and visors, and we run around with them to protect others, and hopefully others wearing masks will protect us. But the most challenging factor in education and training has been social distancing. I think this is the major impact, at least from my experience as principal of this college here in Malta. It has had the most effective impact on our day-to-day running of schools, of colleges, of universities and higher education institutions. Why? Because teaching is our job, and teaching requires interaction, which we cannot do, or we can only do within the parameters of what the health authorities impose. If it's learning, which is the job that we have been entrusted to deliver, that requires also interaction. And again, we have to limit ourselves to the parameters that the health authorities impose. Then with vocational education and training, but also with other sectors in education, practice, hands-on experience requires also interaction. And that is also one aspect which has suffered a lot over these last 9 years. And finally, in the educational process, assessment is what determines whether a person knows the subject and is able to do a job, what we commonly know as being learning outcomes. And that also requires interaction. So for me, when I look at the theme of this conference today, and we question whether there will be a new generation of vets, my answer to the question, although I don't have just one answer, is that this is something which we need to discuss thoroughly and at least focus on 4 main issues during today's interaction, virtual interaction. The first is the mindset, a mindset which requires us to think how vulnerable we are, and to think that there has to be alternatives, there have to be alternatives to the teaching in the traditional sense of the word. Secondly, we need to ensure that prevention is better than cure, and that this is institutionalized as a business continuity measure. The third, we need to make sure that monitoring of the learning and the teaching process is taken more seriously and on a regular, structured manner. And finally, I think we need to look at financing such calamities, financing such inevitable situations and unpredictable situations that we face. These for me are the first thoughts that come to my mind when I look at the theme that we are discussing today. And this is precisely why we have invited speakers and we have identified sub-themes which we thought could provoke more discussion among us. I will conclude my very brief introduction with a quote from a report by McKinsey & Company, Reopening Schools, Fostering a Safe and Effective Learning Environment, because it really captures what we are looking for as training providers and the answers that we would like to provoke today during this conference. The quote says, "It's definitely the case that low-quality remote learning or students struggling to even log in or have any access or interaction with their teachers is at least as bad as what we've seen in past years for students losing ground over the summer." This is exactly the challenge that we have. Are students losing ground? Are lecturers losing ground? What measures do we need to take to bring everyone back on track while we keep social distancing as a measure to prevent us from being infected by COVID? You have all seen the program today. The next speaker is the Commissioner, Nicolas Schmit. Nicolas Schmit took up office as European Commissioner responsible for jobs and social rights in December 2019. And prior to this, and following a long career of public service in his native Luxembourg, he took up duty as permanent representative of Luxembourg to the EU in 1998 for a 6-year term. In 2004, he was appointed Minister Delegate for Foreign Affairs and Immigration. From 2009 and to 2018, he held the position of Minister for Labour and Employment in the Luxembourgish government. He served also as a member of the European Parliament for the Social Democratic Party following his election in May 2019. Nicolas Schmit holds a doctorate in international economic relations and a master's in French literature from the University of Marseille. And I invite Valentina to switch on the message from Commissioner Schmit.
Dear EfVET members, I cannot join you for a live discussion today, sadly, but I wanted to convey a few words to you. One is a word of gratitude. Gratitude for your help in designing the right policies in the field of technical and vocational education and training. And gratitude for your communication on the opportunities the EU provides. And I am also grateful for your contribution to building more inclusive societies. Societies need creative brains and skilled hands. One key contribution of EfVET and of all 224 members of EfVET is to train talents. Talents that can make a career for themselves in our societies and contribute to our economies. It is, however, not enough to speak of inclusiveness. Vocational education and training is also attractive simply because it works. Many young Europeans participate in initial VET and obtain a vocational qualification, a qualification that opens many doors. The employment rate of young VET graduates stands at 80%, higher than that of other graduates. This is something you should be proud of because it is truly skilling for a job. Just as you should be proud of how VET institutions responded to the ongoing crisis. I have read about initiatives to help communities. For example, VET students in Italy who offered free remote help to fix a computer or a smartphone problem. I could also mention the 3D printing of masks in the Basque country. You may say I'm only seeing the glass half full, but I'm also aware of the struggles of training in times of COVID, for teachers as well as for students. I'm aware of the disruptions. Learners were isolated and many remain anxious over their professional future. VET has been seriously disrupted, not least because practical training can hardly be taught online. You have had to adapt your teaching methods to think creatively. And teaching is indeed an art, a skill. But ingenuity, dedication, and passion can only do so much without tangible support. This is why on July the 1st, the Commission invited Member States to make VAT systems more resilient, digital, and accessible. We placed VAT at the heart of our efforts to provide training opportunities for young people so they can thrive. This is crucial to bounce back after these difficult months. We also called on Member States to make sure that VAT has a greater place in tomorrow's economy. And that is my second message to you. To reap the benefits of a greener and more digital economy, we need more agile VAT systems. New technologies will keep emerging. Our workplaces will keep transforming. Today, in your labs and across your screens, you are training the critical workers of tomorrow. Workers who will renovate our roofs and provide better housing conditions. Workers who will handle new digital tasks, making European companies more competitive. Today and tomorrow, we will also help update the skill sets of workers across all fields so that when they change jobs, they don't struggle and despair, but instead they learn and develop. With a full trust in your training and in your capacities. For this, you need the right framework. This is why we are giving a boost to apprenticeships. This is why we asked Member States to improve short-term VAT programs to help the unemployed. This is why we want to better anticipate the needs of tomorrow's labor markets. Dear friends, I wish you a fruitful conference. You will hear about good practices from Denmark, Lithuania, and elsewhere in Europe. I trust these will inspire more innovations in your organizations and in your member states. Innovations that are much needed, as the world of tomorrow needs a relevant, adaptable, and hands-on workforce. We are counting on you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Schmidt. Commissioner Schmidt has rightly highlighted a number of challenges that we need to face. He made it clear that VET has been disrupted because of its hands-on experience that it should share with its students. He asked us to have more agile VET systems to boost apprenticeships and to take advantage of greener, cleaner economy. These are the challenges that we face as VET providers. However, let us hear what the impact of COVID has been on education and training, what the foreseeable impact could be. And for this, we have invited Andrea Schleicher, Director for Education and Skills at the OECD. First of all, thank you, Mr. Schleicher, for agreeing to participate in the EfVET conference. A brief introduction, as I said, he is Director for Education and Skills at OECD. He initiated and oversees the program for international students assessment and other international instruments that have created a global platform for policymakers, researchers, and educators across nations and cultures to innovate and transform educational policies and practices. He has worked for over 20 years with ministers and education leaders to improve education. Former US Secretary of Education Arne Duncan said that Schleicher understands the global issues and challenges as well as, or better than anyone I've met, and he tells me the truth. Close quote. Former UK Secretary of State Michael Gove called Schleicher the most important man in English education, even though he's German and lives in France. He's the recipient of numerous honors and awards, including those awarded in the name of the first President of the Federal Republic of Germany for exemplary democratic engagement. He also holds an honorary professorship from the University of Heidelberg. So, Professor Schleicher, thank you very much for joining us. The floor is yours, and we look forward to your ideas on how we can meet the challenges of COVID and the foreseeable impact that it will have on education and training. Mr. Schleicher.
Professor?
Yes.
Andreas, could you activate your microphone, please?
Yes, I hope you can hear me now.
Yes.
Thanks so much for inviting me to this very important topic of how we can actually live through this pandemic and come out of this stronger, not weaker. Obviously, these have been very difficult times for education and training. I think learners all over the world have figured out that learning is not a place, but an activity that they need to be supported in innovative work. And of course, work-based learning was particularly hardly hit at a time when people become the problem of economic processes. Employers are reluctant to hire apprenticeships and offer work-based learning opportunities. Remote learning has become the lifeline for success, but we've also seen it has its limits. It doesn't address the kind of social functions of training. Very important, the key of vocational education and its secret of success is that it engages people to work, with real people on real problems that have real consequences. And that has become so difficult. We've also seen how online learning has tended to amplify inequality. It hasn't necessarily created it, but certainly amplified it. Accreditation has come at stake. It's very hard to assess learning outcomes, particularly where practical training is involved. But I also want to stress, we have seen lots of technological innovation and lots of social innovation that we can really build on. I don't want to go through the headlines. Employment situation is very difficult, and as always, the most vulnerable people are hit hardest. And we do not know how that is going to end up. The health situation is uncertain. The employment context will be more uncertain. And the question is how we can prepare more resilient, more responsive training systems that can adapt to this changing context. If you look at the retraining needs, COVID crisis has limited jobs mobility and has obviously also limited very important labor migration. It has made entire sectors non-viable. But what is so interesting, if you look at the backbone of our economies, particularly during the lockdowns, these were largely jobs that come out of the vocational field. The COVID crisis has also increased skills demand for some specific sectors and occupations. Technology is an obvious example. And I think that's something we should keep in mind as well. Let's sort of look a little bit back at the strengths of vocational education before analyzing how they may be reshaped in the context of the COVID crisis. First of all, Commissioner Schmidt has already highlighted this. The employment generally for people with vocational qualifications is very, very strong. It's certainly a lot stronger than those who don't have baseline qualifications, and it is also better than for those with general qualifications, at least in the vast majority of countries. So great strengths in getting young people into jobs and employment. We could even say in many countries, employment is as good as people who go for advanced university education, much longer kind of studies. I think that's a big strength of the vocational education and training, the strong linkages that are created. And you know all of this. It hasn't yet translated into an earnings advantage in many countries. Now you can see in some countries, the earnings of general graduates are still considerably higher. And you can see a country like the Czech Republic, where vocational education generates a lot more benefits for individuals. But you can see a country like Finland, where it works the other way around. So this is certainly something that education and training systems still need to work on, and that will not change as part of this pandemic. Part of that has to do with money. What is very clear is that quality learning at the workplace does have its price, and cost structures are more expensive for vocational education and training. But that's not always mirrored in national expenditure. You can see, countries like Germany, there are many like that, where actually there is more investment being made in a vocational graduate than in an academic one, simply because of the cost structures. But you see countries like the UK, where it is the other way around. There's a lot of talk in the UK now about apprenticeships and vocational training. That's very good. But actually, if you look at spending structures, there's still a lot more money going into general education than in vocational one. And that explains the previous figures. The quality of the work-based learning, of course, is a determinant of who is going to go towards those studies, and ultimately a determinant of what's going to come out. And that explains the earnings patterns that I've just shown you in advance. I think that's a very important part. Quality learning has its price, and that's where a number of countries still need to work on. Most countries have got that right, and I think it's a strength generally of European countries, but actually I think there's a lot to be done. The other part, what I want to make is that it is precisely the work-based component that is the strength of vocational education. It's very, very hard to emulate vocational education and training in education institutions. That's the hard lesson that we have learned. Commissioner Schmidt has already highlighted this. This has become so difficult in the COVID context, even though, and that's my only sort of point I want to make, is not impossible. We have seen actually very, very good example for how some of that kind of work-based training has also become digitized. I'm going to talk about this in a moment. But before, I just wanted to show you the evidence for this. When you actually look at the combination of work and study, you can see where students have no work experience in vocational studies. Actually, the employment rate is considerably poorer than when there is apprenticeship components involved, or mandatory traineeship, or even work outside the curriculum. Now, isn't that interesting? It doesn't necessarily have to be part of the formal training program. It is simply the fact that people have training, a workplace experience that increases their kind of employment opportunities. And it's also what makes vocational education and training attractive to employers, and that will not change during the crisis. Employers will know who their prospective employees are and how they can work with them. I think that matching process is a very, very important part of the economic returns to employers. The non-monetary returns to employers are often greater than the simple monetary returns in terms of the value that apprenticeships actually generate. But this chart is really important. Now, without work-based experience, vocational education and training loses much of this value. So the question in the pandemic is, how can we retain that work-based component and not give up on this? And I'm going to come back to this next. But before I do so, this is just the current mix. You can see that there are a number of countries on the right side where work-based learning is very, very strongly embedded in vocational education and training. But you have also many countries on the left side where that is not yet the case, where this is largely school-based training. Often, it's just a label, vocational education and training. And when you look inside, it's actually pretty much school-based learning, just with a more narrow curriculum. So the key is, to move more countries from the left side to the right side, for which you obviously need an active engagement of employers. That's the crux of all of this. So let's look forward. COVID-19 and beyond. I think the first priority needs to be to provide more flexible and more resilient vocational education and training. The second point is about increasing the use of technology. And I'm going to show you some examples for this. And then to focus training on the future-proof sectors and occupations. Now, once again, many job profiles have become vulnerable and maybe redundant in that COVID crisis, and that may not change. I think this is just amplified, many of those processes that we're going to see in the future. And last but not least, how can we enhance a broader range of cognitive, but also social and emotional skills? One of the great strengths of vocational training is often overlooked, and that is that it doesn't just focus on cognitive or practical skills, but it also strengthens very, very important social emotional skills. Can I work with people who are different from me? Can I actually take courage to take responsibility, to take action, to mobilize? Those are very important skill components in the world in which we live, and we should not overlook them. So when I talk about more flexible and resilient means for reskilling, I really talk about allowing more training breaks, extensions, and also provide greater modularization. Still, most of our training is very lumpy, and that doesn't fit well with the COVID context. Provide part-time weekend and online courses. I think that's something where a lot of countries have actually moved during the crisis. Support employers that offer apprenticeship, not through penalties, but actually through positive incentives. Sometimes it means providing institutions that allow employers to share apprenticeships. I'm sure in Denmark talks, that's what you're going to hear about. Very interesting experiences. It's also important to fast-track licensing and the recognition of prior learning. Now, that's something that we are not doing as well as in vocational education and training than in the academic field. Now, we are not very good yet in understanding what people have learned in different places and then connect them to new opportunities. It's probably also the time that we should provide people with real-time and direct access to qualification exams, even if they haven't followed every part of every course formally. In this COVID context, that's going to be very hard to monitor. So, and that again will strengthen modularization. The rapid retraining for essential jobs. I mean, in the health sector, a lot of this has happened, but we can do that in other sectors. And for that, there's a lot of potential out there. Think about workers in the airline industry that have difficulties finding a job, and they can basically become, maybe work in the medical industry, or hospitality workers care for the elderly. There are a lot of connections that we can build by making different pathways better compatible. And then provide, when people are on reduced working hours, that's very common now. The gap can be used for training and filled with meaningful experiences. So this is what I mean when I talk about resilience in education. Let me talk a little bit about technology, because I think this is an area, if we're honest, we are just at the very beginning in education. If you look at, market capitalization, education and training are just tiny compared with the health sector. In the health sector, you have a lot of, you have a big industry that supports, hospitals and schools and universities. In education, we spend, less than 3% of education and training expenditure on technology so far. Now, the COVID crisis has, put us on the spot, and there's a lot of things happening, but let's not forget we are at the very beginning. Also, if you look at global education venture capital, now that's mainly a story about China. In 2014, you could have said, most of that venture capital was in the United States and so on. But if you look at this in 2019, the latest figures that we've got, you can see actually 60% is coming from one country only, that is China. Then comes, the United States is a smaller share. In the European Union, you can barely see on a chart. So I think, again, creating more room for entrepreneurship, for innovative ways of training and bringing technology and innovation into training, there's a lot of scope for this to be strengthened. Where is the money going? Augmented reality, virtual reality are very strong, and that is obviously the field where vocational education and training can benefit most, and we have seen some very interesting examples. Artificial intelligence, robotics, blockchain. Those are the kind of types of investments that are being made in technology at the moment. Clearly, augmented reality, virtual reality provide for entirely new learning experiences. And in the medical kind of side, we can see that very well already. And that's where vocational education and training can benefit a lot. We have not seen that very much at the system level, but some companies have done amazing work here, where they have actually virtualized in a very short time a lot of the training experiences, so it's a lot of the assessment experiences. But I do think there's a lot of further potential for people to do this. You know, we have flight simulators for pilots that are really, really good. Why don't we do that for many other kind of professions? Learning analytics, that's also something that we should not, you know, underestimate in its potential. Again, in East Asia, you see a lot of examples where there are many sensors in the classrooms, so that trainers get a good sense of where people struggle, where people are doing really well, where they get bored, where they get interested. And again, you know, trainers can then even remotely support learners in entirely new ways. So technology is available. You see very little of that yet employed in vocational education and training, simply because it's very complex. But I think, again, as we develop economies of scale, there should be potential. Then assessment and exams. You can now test vocational skills very well in simulated, augmented environments. Again, I think there are some good examples. We need to build more of this. You know, one of our dreams at the OECD is to build a PISA for vocational education and training, to really show the range of skills that young people actually have that often get lost, because what we typically do still is we assess vocational graduates with, you know, second-class academic tests, rather than looking at kind of assessments that capture the strengths of vocational education and training. And again, that is now possible, and the COVID crisis has accelerated a lot of interesting development in this field. And then finally, blockchain. When I said, you know, make vocational training more modular, more personalized, so that people can have greater discretion over what they learn, how they learn, where they learn, when they learn, perhaps across multiple employers, perhaps later in their life. I think that's going to be very, very important for vocational education and training, not just to look at initial skills, but also the upgrading of skills. And this is, I think, where blockchain can do a very, very important contributions to have verified degrees and credentials, develop digital degrees. And I think this could actually break the monopoly of universities over accreditation. Currently, micro-credentials, but we need reliable techniques to validate them. And again, blockchain has a lot of potential. Now, the last point I want to make is the importance to reconcile skill demand and career, actually second last point, and career aspirations. Now, we are always very, very good in, you know, advertising vocational education and training for other people's children, where we need to take more care of what actually people want to get out of this. Now, what is the right mix? And that requires not just forecasting economic demand, skill demand, but also good stakeholder engagement, listening more to the interests of young people, where they are looking for, making this a first choice, not a last resort. It's also about matching and recruitment support, and provide career guidance. And that must happen very, very early on. You know, they're not, you know, people don't make their most important career choices when they leave school. They make their most important career choices when they are in primary school. Now, that's when you decide the subjects and the areas where you're going to invest your main effort. And I think the often low aspiration of vocational education and training comes from those early stages. So I think this is something we need to pay greater attention to, particularly after this pandemic context. Now, very last point is simply the recognition is that the kind of things that are easy to teach are now easy to automate, to digitize and automate. That's, I think, the tragedy today, that routine tasks are disappearing from our labor markets. And that is not just about, you know, routine manual tasks, the same we are now seeing on routine cognitive tasks. In fact, you know, I believe that vocational education and training here is a lot more future-proof to digitalization than academic training. We see the rise in a technology-intensive task, and you put it together, and you can see where the future of work and skills really, really lies. Some people have called this a race between technology and education. You know, before the great industrial revolution, neither technology nor training mattered a lot for most people. Then came the Industrial Revolution, putting people ahead of, technology ahead of people, and creating huge amount of social pains. And that's the kind of phenomenon that we are now seeing with the digital revolution. Now, where basically, again, technology is racing ahead of the skills of people. And we see, again, this mismatch between the kind of skills that people need and what our training systems actually provide. Now, that's the gap that we will need to fill. And when you look, for example, skills to manage complex digital information that are so crucial, you can see among older adults, 55 to 65-year-olds, only about 1 in 10 adults have those kinds of skills. It's a huge kind of training gap. And now you tell me, well, that problem is now fixed with young people becoming digital natives. And you can see the bars get longer, but they're not, as long as you might think. We're still talking only about every second young person getting into the labor market being equipped with the digital skills they need today. And that's true for vocational education, it's true for academic education. This is where we need to work a lot harder. We also see how this has changed. You can see, for example, here, Finland and Kazakhstan in the older generation do quite similarly. So the past was quite similar across those countries. Today, Finland is #1 and Kazakhstan is still pretty much where it was. You can even look at Singapore, the same story. It started out very low, is doing extremely well today. The United States was the front runner among older generations, is now falling below the average, not because things got worse, but because the country hasn't moved as fast as most other countries have. A lot of things, I think, to be done to get compatible with the knowledge age. What is also important that this is not just about technological skills. Now we can see that virtually every field of skill offers additional returns in digitally intensive industries. That should give us courage that actually investing in vocational education and training is not, opposed to digitalization or in conflict with digitalization, but this is where the synergies are going to lie. So digital intensive workplaces are not going to make these skills less, but they make them more valuable. The digitalization also, encourages people to learn more from coworkers, to learn more by doing, to keeping up to date. So I think these are all very, very important facets that we need to keep in mind. And I know I'm out of time, so I'm going to stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Schweiker. I think we need some more time, probably a day, to absorb all the information that you have shared with us this morning. I took a number of messages, but by way of concluding this very, very interesting exchange with you this morning, I think you have asked training providers or given training providers the biggest challenge of all, and that is, how can we retain the work-based component in such a situation? I think that for me and for many training providers who are listening to you now, that is the biggest challenge. You have identified a number of solutions to it: flexibility, resilience of VET, the use of technology is amply, of course. If it hadn't been for technology, we wouldn't be here listening to you this morning. As well as future-proof sectors and occupations need to be looked into. And a very important point, which from my experience, even in this college of 12,000 students, we have seen how to counteract the emotional and social skills that people might be losing during this very, very intensive period. So once again, thank you very much for your presentation. We will really look into your slides with a slower pace, if I may say so, because there's a lot of food for thought there. But on behalf of all EfVET members, thank you for sharing with us this morning these very, very valuable points that we will take into account. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Valentina, the next point on my agenda is the panel discussion. And here we have also some very interesting speakers whom I would like to introduce very briefly now. The topic of this panel discussion is the future of the Erasmus Plus program. So key elements in a European education area. And here we have three speakers. I have João Santos, who probably needs no introduction to the EfVET members, but for those who are listening to us and who might not be familiar with João, João is an senior expert in the Directorate General for Employment, Social Affairs and the Inclusion of the European Commission in Brussels. And the unit is responsible for vocational training, apprenticeships, and adult education, as well as for the policy orientation of the Erasmus Plus program in these fields. From 2014 to 2019, he was also the deputy head of units. The second speaker on the panel is Michelle Romber. She has worked as a policy analyst for the Belgian Parliament and has a 30 years experience in the European Commission and its service providers. She joined the Education, Audiovisual and Culture Executive Agency in 2006 and its creation. She contributed to the successful implementation of the youth programs, managed several policy networks, and is nowadays the head of the skills sector in charge of EU funding opportunities in the field of vocational education and training. Her teams notably responsible for the management of the Erasmus Plus Centers of Vocational Excellence, Sector Skills Alliance, EfVET network, and PIAC designated bodies focused on the client services in translating policies into action. Her professional goal, she says in her short bio note, is to help you grow your EU project. So she is a person to contact when thinking about EU projects. And the third speaker in this panel discussion is Mika Saarinen. He is a Council of Education Head of Unit at the Finnish National Agency for Education, which is the national development body of education and training in Finland. He's also the Deputy Director of the Finnish Erasmus Plus National Agency. He has worked for over 20 years with both vocational education training, higher education, and most recently also general and adult education questions. He's experienced in the European Union matters and has extensive knowledge in implementing the Erasmus program and its predecessors. His experience spans both national and international development work within the EU and globally concerning education, the world of work and skills and competences, and he occupies a number of committee, advisory group, and governing board positions both nationally and at EU levels. Mika has a master's degree within theoretical philosophy from the University of Helsinki, Finland, and has also done further studies in international policies and politics, and adult education. So as you can see from these very short bio notes, we have three formidable speakers here. The topic is extremely interesting, the future of the Erasmus Plus program, key elements in the European education area, and therefore I look forward to their presentations, giving the floor first to our dear friend and colleague for many years, João Santos.
Thank you very much, James, and congratulations to EfVET for once again organizing this annual event, this year in particular circumstances. I'm fortunate to have already joined these conferences for the 6th time. The first time was in 2014 in Porto, and I'm very happy to contribute to your discussions. I would like to, so Valentina, you'll be controlling the slides, right? Okay, so I would like to, in the next few minutes I have, in fact, 10 minutes that that James gave me.
No, you have more. You have more.
Okay, good, fine. To give you a quick overview of what are we doing at the European level to support skills and vocational education and training. I know a lot of you have heard about these things before, but I'll try to put it in a wider context of what we are doing. And of course, I'm not going to get into any detail on this, but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer when we get to the questions and answers part. So first of all, I think it's very important to understand that what we are doing in education and training is not a goal in itself. It is also contributing to the wider European work on the EU strategic agenda defined by the Council, the political guidelines of the new European Commission that took office last year, and of course the European Pillar of Social Rights, which sort of, encapsulates most of the work that we are doing, and in a wider context, I would say even the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So what we are doing whenever we defining policies for education and training, in particular for VET, we always have this general framework in mind. And earlier this year, in January, the new Commission, full of energy, launched a communication on a strong social Europe for just transitions, where it defined what would be the major milestones, I would say, in terms of developing policy that will frame what we will do in the next 5 years under the leadership of the new Commission. And you've seen that in the last few months, we started in July with a package of initiatives, one for reinforcing the youth guarantee, because in moments of crisis, in particular, youth unemployment tends to grow dramatically. So first answer to what are the challenges of the young people. We also launched the European Skills Agenda. We launched, and this is of interest for most of us, a proposal for recommendation on vocational education and training. In fact, some of my colleagues this morning are at the Council trying to fine-tune the last elements so that we can have the pleasure of having the recommendation adopted in the Council meeting in November. And also very recently, you've seen the Digital Education Action Plan and the European Education Area being adopted by the Commission on the 30th of September, and also the announcement of individual learning accounts, a proposal from the Commission on individual learning accounts to empower individuals for upskilling and reskilling throughout their life. And this is foreseen for the end of 2021. It was just adopted a few days ago in the Commission work program that we will work on this for next year. So having given you the general panorama of what are the main things, I would like to now go into the skills agenda. And here, just to mention that Vice President Skinas recently, when we launched the skills agenda, he mentioned in quite dramatic terms, I would say, that now is the time to join hands and unlock a skills revolution. I like this element because it really means that we're going to change something fundamentally, leaving nobody behind. And this element is very important, that we are not only talking about modernizing education and training system, but having the social dimension underpinning everything we do. Next slide, please. Very quickly, I think it's important, you all know this, and I suppose James knows this slide better than anyone else because he was leading the work on this just a few years ago, that in Europe, whatever we do, we always have to have in attention that there's no European education and training system, much less a European VET system, and that there's a tremendous diversity of VET systems and the outputs of coming out of the education and training systems throughout Europe. So whatever we do, we've always got to have in mind that from a European level, we've got to do something that sort of fits with what are the needs and the challenges in all the countries. And this, I think this slide encapsulates that diversity that we are permanently having in mind when we're looking at the education systems in Europe. Next slide, please. Now, the skills agenda that I said was adopted on the 1st of July identifies 12 concrete actions. I'm not going to go through all of them because I'm sure most of you have heard about it. Are we going back to the slide? Okay, thank you, Valentina. So I would just like to mention highlight some of these 12. So not going to the exhaustive list, but I think that it defines the skills agenda, defined a clear strategy to ensure that skills lead to jobs, and this link between skills and jobs, I think, was reinforced in this new skills agenda compared to the previous one. It sets ambitious objectives for upskilling and reskilling with very ambitious targets that will require a tremendous effort, but I think we have no other option to address the challenges of the green and digital transition. It calls for collective action in mobilizing businesses, social partners, stakeholders, and this is mainly through the Pact for Skills. It's a new initiative that the Commission launched under the European Skills Agenda, which aims to bring all the partners, not only the education system, because we cannot only rely on the education system to understand and to respond to what are rapid economic and social changes in our societies. We need to bring all the stakeholders involved. I'm talking about trade unions, I'm talking about government authorities, of course, I'm talking about public employment. So really bring everyone together to understand where we are going strategically and ensure that the education system is working with all these partners to deliver on what is necessary. And of course, we also in the skills agenda also identify it's not only about measures, but how are we going to finance them? And in particular, the support from the EU, but this is not enough, of course. National authorities and national budgets also have to contribute to this tremendous challenge we have to achieve the ambitious targets that have been set. Can we go to the next one, please? Now, moving from the skills agenda, I'd like to move on to the VET recommendation. And here you've already seen our commissioner earlier. I'm going to try to not repeat anything he said, but the emphasis and the importance he gives to vocational education and training. He's met recently also with the associations of VET providers. He's very engaged in vocational training, and we've really, after Marianne Thyssen, the previous commission, we've been fortunate to have commissioners that are very, very attentive to vocational education and training, and this has been the case also with the new commission. Next slide, please. The proposal for the VET recommendation is quite innovative in the sense that if you look at what has been the history of vocational training throughout Europe, we started, I mean, the Treaty of Rome back in 1957 already had an article giving a role for the European Union to work on vocational education and training. No other education sector was there at the time, but we've had over the years quite a lot of initiatives, recommendations that try to look at piecemeal problems. So if we had a problem with quality assurance, we have a recommendation on quality assurance. We have a problem with apprenticeships, we have a recommendation on apprenticeships. We have something on credit system, there we go. But it was always a sort of a piecemeal approach. Even when we're talking about attractiveness, we had a problem with attractiveness, let's have a vocational skills week for the attractiveness. And what I think this recommendation now represents in comparison to what is the past, it tries to provide a comprehensive view that if someone came from another planet to Europe and wanted to understand what vocational training in Europe is all about, this recommendation tries to fit that ambition. Give an idea of what is the strategic vision, what are we doing concretely in terms of measures, how are we funding this, and what are the governance structures to support this. And it also includes a set of targets so that we can measure, not only have some blah blah saying what we should do, but also measure progress with quantifiable targets. So the approach, as I said, I'm not going to get into all the details, but I'd like to mention that one of the core elements is this idea of learner-centered approach to vocational education and training, that we understand what are people's ambitions, what are their career perspectives, we understand what is going outside, we can provide the adequate guidance, we can provide them with a personal development plan and fit VET to what are the needs of the individual, linking it to the needs of society. And of course, and this is a critical element of VET, you all know it much better than me, this inclusive approach. VET is not only about innovation, it's not only about growth. Of course, it is also about that, and it has to contribute to that, but it is also very much of providing people with opportunities that otherwise no other education system would be there to do. So it's this element of inclusion that I would also like to mention. Of course, making VET responsive and resilient to what are the needs of an evolving labor market, and this element of green and digital transitions, make sure that VET is there to support people, empowering people with the skills to manage these transitions. Can we go to the next slide, please?
Joao, 5 more minutes, please.
Yes, yes, I will respect that.
Thank you.
Fine. And in terms of what we are doing at the European level, besides the funding element, and Erasmus Plus plays a critical role, but not only Erasmus, the European Social Fund, the ERDF, Invest EU, now the RRF that we proposed recently. But in addition to this, there are certain actions at EU level that we propose in the VET recommendation. Of course, the platforms of Centers of Vocational Excellence, as you all know, I'm very passionate about this initiative, and a lot of you are participating in it as well. Of course, digitalization of VET, and I know that there will be another colleague talking about Selfie later today. We propose also to work on European vocational core profiles, which is basically trying to understand how qualifications in Europe have similarities between them for certain professions, and see what we can do working together in Europe in profiles that are as common as possible throughout Europe. So making sure that we work on this and to support what is there, so not creating nothing new, but really identifying what is there and how can we at the European level contribute to this. The quality assurance element is extremely important. We've repealed the EfVET recommendation as it was and included it in this comprehensive recommendation. I would go to the next slide, please. So this gives you an idea of what we are doing in terms of VET and the targets. As I said, it's important not only to have objectives, but then to be capable of measuring them to see whether the work we are doing is fulfilling what is expected. And in this respect, we have one of the targets, which is the share of employed graduates. So people coming out with a VET qualification, how many of them get into the labor market quickly? And we want this to be 82%. We want 60% of graduates in VET, and Andreas from the OECD mentioned how important it is that VET, what differentiates VET from all the other sectors is this kind of real work experience, and that at least 60% of recent graduates from VET benefit from work-based learning, and this element of mobility, which links well with what my colleagues will say in the next interventions on Erasmus+, is that we would like 8% of VET graduates to benefit from learner mobility, not only for the element of attractiveness of the sector, but also to ensure that they acquire skills that otherwise would be impossible to acquire if they just stay in their place of where they live. Now, I'm going on to the European education area. Very quickly to tell that the President of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, has supported strongly in her opening speech to the Parliament when she was asking for their confidence. She mentioned the European education area as one of her key objectives. And can we go to the next slide, please? And I would just like to mention very quickly what we want to achieve the European education area. First of all is, there's this big ambition of equipping European society and people with the capacity, with the skills for the digital and green transition. So ensure that the European education area contributes to this. Also ensure that the health crisis that we are currently going through doesn't become a barrier to learning and doesn't become a way of people getting disengaged from learning. So we have to build on this, and this initiative has that ambition. And of course, finally, making the European education area tangible through the various proposals that are set out in this communication. Next slide, please. So not getting into the detail of each of them, there are 6 dimensions that are proposed for taking forward the European education area and establishing it by 2025. The first one is quality in education and training. So all the elements that are sort of hygiene elements to make sure that education and training is underpinned by quality. The element of inclusion, which is fundamental, as I said, in this kind of social market economy that we are building in Europe. The green and digital transitions has to do with the Green Deal. It has to do with the future digitalization of our society as well. Next slide, please. And the last 3 dimensions that are proposed is a big focus on teachers and trainers, including the establishment of teacher academies, 25 teacher academies, to support and to allow teachers and trainers to be ready for the digitalization and all the challenges of teaching in a completely different environment. There's a big focus on higher education. You know, there's the initiative on European universities that is expected to introduce fundamental changes in higher education. And of course, this geopolitical dimension of not only looking at our belly buttons in Europe, but really looking at the world and interacting with the world, sending students and learning from what is done in other parts of the world. Next slide. So I'll go to my final slide, which has to do with the European education area. And as I said, I'm not going into any detail in any of this, but just trying to give you a hint of what we are doing at the European level. And if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer after. Next slide, please. So why did we even come up with this digital education action plan? I think there are many reasons for this. One of them is that more than 1 in 5 young people are going out of the education system without basic level of digital skills. I mean, I could understand the older generation didn't have it, but the young people, there's something going wrong if still around 20% of young people don't leave the system with basic education skills. Of course, COVID-19 put the emphasis of how important it is for people not only to have digital skills, but for the system, the education system, to be prepared to teach and to allow people to learn through digital skills. There's a big issue of teachers, and that's why maybe the Teachers Academy comes quite well in this context, that only 39% of teachers feel that they are prepared for using digital technologies in their daily work. So you can imagine, if the teachers don't feel prepared, how can they then prepare the young people or the adults that are going into the system to have those digital skills? Last slide, please. And this comes to my last slide, to just say that the Digital Education Action Plan, I'm not going to get into the details there, but has 2 big strategic priorities. One, which has to do with the education ecosystem, with the infrastructure elements, if you want, equipping schools, making sure that you know, you have the MOOCs there, you have the teaching infrastructure there in place. And another one, which has to do with the content of the skills. How should people be empowered with digital skills in order to participate in the digital society? So this is what I had to say. I'm sorry, James, I went 3 minutes beyond what you had told me, but I hope this gives you an idea of what we are doing at the European level. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer. Thank you
very much. Joao, with your permission, we'll take questions at the end so that we will
Sure.
do. All I would like to add is that you should look at the chat in case there are questions that our members have written down, and then therefore you can address at the very end. May I invite Michelle Grombier to deliver her presentation?
With pleasure. Many thanks, James. I am very happy actually to be there today joining you. I had a look on the list of participants, and I saw with interest that many of you, dear participants, are already benefiting from a grant that has been allocated by the executive agency, and the others, I hope, will be able to benefit very soon. My intention today was to present how we are dealing with the transition in between the current Erasmus Plus program and the next program that we are very actively preparing for the moment. So, as you know, our mission in the executive agency is to really try to turn policy into action and results. So we implement the Erasmus Plus program. We will continue to do so at centralized level, action directly managed from Brussels, but we also provide opportunity linked to humanitarian aid, audiovisual, culture, citizenship, notably. We also develop studies in the field of education and youth as a EURIDICI network and Youth Wiki network, providing you interesting information about what's going on in those fields. So you can count on us to inform you about the programs as soon as the new program will be officially approved, we will organize a major online info days. You will all be invited, and we will present to you the policy context, but also how practically you can prepare an application for applying for a grant. Then we deal with project selection. We guide you during the implementation of the project, and at the end of your initiative, we collect the result, and we are doing some, let's say, synthesis report impact analysis to feed the commission colleague working on strategic issues to integrate the lesson learned from your project, your expectation into a new cycle of project and call for proposal. So this year, what is our actuality, despite the COVID, and it's also interesting to see how we've integrated the lesson learned from the COVID pandemic. We were very happy to implement for the first time a call for proposal, large call for proposal, strictly, completely dedicated to the Center of Vocational Excellence. It was very, very successful. We have selected 7 large-scale projects that will run for 4 years. They will start in a few days, actually on the 1st of November. And they will develop skills ecosystem at local level. The regional dimension is very important. And this will be in line with quite important innovation strategies. So what we try with a lot of success this year is to involve associated partners from Erasmus Plus partner countries. And we saw that hundreds of partners from those partner countries are associated to the project that will start very soon, bringing an added value to the creation of those platforms. So the activities that will be running are articulated under 3 big groups: teaching and learning activities, cooperation and partnership, governance and funding. You might be interested to have a look on the projects that are selected. I provided you with the link. There, in a few days, once all contracts will have been committed and contracted and pre-financed, you will find a fiche for each project, presenting, giving you a flavor of the activities, the partnership, the budget, what are the main events that will be organized by those projects. And so it will allow to have information, but also create some synergy and networking activities among you. So you can see that while the VET sector, VET provider represent actually 1/3 of the large number of activities and organizations that are actually implementing the project for the moment. There are also many other organizations. We can see that business, we can see that research is well involved as well. We have accreditation body. So the knowledge triangle is working already very well in those ambitious projects that are being developed. So on the basis of this, we are preparing this, this new program. The Center of Vocational Excellence will, of course, remain one of the key cornerstones of the activities the agency is implementing in the field of VET. It will be all about regional development, innovation, inclusion, smart specialization strategy. The knowledge triangle conception will be reinforced. We will also allow, hopefully, this has still to be officially confirmed, of course, but our intention is to allow all the partner countries of the world, part of the Erasmus Plus program, to be involved not only as associated partner, but as full partner. So we hope that this will be approved. We will also prepare for you a brand new e-grant. From this period, we quickly became completely paperless. We are developing also a system that will allow you to give feedback, to receive extra support. So we are there really to join you in developing your project, but also during the whole project life cycle, we will be at your disposal. So Currently, we are also dealing with the Sector Skills Alliance. This is the last year, actually, the Sector Skills Alliance are implemented in the current framework. It was a very successful action, tackling gaps regarding one or different occupational profile in a specific sector. So it was about bridging the labor market needs and also improve the responsiveness of VET system at all levels. So we are, for the moment, also launching project. The first project will start also in the next few days, 1st of November. Articulate under two laws, design and delivery of quality VET, and implementation of a strategic approach that we call blueprint on sectoral cooperation on skills. So we propose as pilot sector this year, the 6th sector that you can see on the screen, blockchain notably, that was already presented as a key sector this morning, cultural heritage, cybersecurity, rail supply and transport, industry, software services, work integration, social enterprises. So all those sectors were subject to, well, let's say a lot of enthusiasm from our target public. We receive many applications from consortia involving 800 partners. We spent, as usually, the whole budget available. We have selected 12 proposals covering 10 economic sectors, notably, of course, education, but also, and particularly interesting this year, human health sector, social work activities, accommodation, food services. So this sector will benefit from a real help from the reflection and the activities, the strategies that are being developed. We have all member states involved. We have the tendency for all those calls to have much more participating organizations and countries that's strictly required. And of course, the VET providers are extremely well represented in those projects. So, in terms of future, we will change the approach, we will improve the approach. For the moment, we had a little bit of an artificial division between Knowledge Alliance on the one side, targeting higher education, Sector Skills Alliance on the other side, targeting, well, let's say the VET, but also the industrial sector. And this will be merged in so-called partnership for innovation, including also forward-looking project. So you will have a call for forward-looking project with 2 priorities, and we expect those priorities to target digital and to target green skills. And as far as the alliance are concerned, we will have those partnerships involved in alliance for education and enterprises, and we will keep a specific lot for the Alliance for Sectoral Cooperation on Skills Implementation of the blueprints. So there also we would like to integrate partner countries as full partners. You will have funding system that will be quite simplified. We are not speaking about unit cost anymore. We will try to develop lump sum system, which are really putting the focus on the quality of the implementation of the project. If you develop what you intended to develop, you will get the grant. That's what agreed at the beginning of the project. So more focus on impact, more focus on exploitation of results, and less burden and administration for you. So we can maybe close also, you know, this, let's say, presentation on what we are doing to prepare the future. We are already very actively preparing the next invitation to submit proposal for the EfVET, the European Quality Assurance in Vocational Education and Training. Joao mentioned the new recommendation. We have 20 projects running for the moment, managed by national reference points in the countries that you can see. 2.6 million. We always have a demand for this invitation to submit proposal. exceeding the budget we have, and the project are very actively working on the tracking of graduates, notably, and on the quality of vocational education as a whole in their respective national context. You have a compendium of projects that is available. And in the next generation of program for the next proposal linked to EfVET, we will put an emphasis notably on self-evaluation and on peer review. So this is it for this transition period. Have a look on the description of the project selected. This might be inspiring for you in preparing your next application for a grant, and I am together with my team at your full disposal for any support. We try, especially during this period, to develop a proactive and empathic style, which means also that for those of you who have a running project for the moment, we have flexibility in giving the possibility to have a supplementary agreement extension to contractual period, and offering to you the possibility to use potential gap in the way you were envisaging the project, replacing, let's say, physical mobilities by other relevant activities. So this is in the philosophy of the agency to try to offer a maximum of flexibility. Many thanks and all the best for the new challenge and opportunity offered by the new program.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Michelle. That was a very interesting presentation. Turning policy into action is, as you can imagine, the work that we do as training providers. So the huge opportunities that you have shared with us will certainly go down very well with our members. There was one question to you, perhaps you could answer it very quickly, regarding the Erasmus Plus app. And the question is, any idea when this will be available?
Well, actually, we are working on the assumption that we could be able to publish all new calls for proposal end of November, beginning of December. It might be a little bit optimistic, but we prefer to have this scenario to be able to activate all the opportunities for funding beginning of December, and to organize the info days presenting in detail the actions, but also how to apply, let's say, mid-December.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Thank you for participating. If there are any more questions, Michelle will be with us at least until the break. Yes. So our next speaker is Mika Saarinen. So I'll give the floor to Mika. The future of the Erasmus Plus program, key elements in a European education area.
Yes, hi. It seems to be my picture has frozen somehow.
I cannot see you at least, but let's see.
Now you should be able to.
Now we can see you, and you are not frozen, although you are in Finland.
I am indeed, and we are slightly frozen in Finland, and in fact, all of you would, of course, be slightly frozen if we would have been having the meeting in Kuopio as was originally planned, and that would have been very, very nice, nice for everyone. But now, with this situation, we are here.
We look forward to next year, Mika.
Yes. So now I have to ask Valentina to share my presentation, though, because that I'm not able to do somehow. Sharing the screen doesn't work. Thank you very much. So very good. It's really nice to be here, and it's a pleasure to follow, of course, upon Joao and Michelle. The presentation has already been going into quite a bit of the detail as far as the policy on the European level and as far as the new program on centralized level as well. But coming from a national agency for education, the national authority in Finland for education and training, but also the Erasmus Plus national agency, I'll take the sort of opportunity to speak a little bit more about the context that the new program is being launched in, and then also the requirements and opportunities for VET providers specifically. Because a lot of the actions are, of course, not on centralized level run by the EACA, but run by the national agencies in the countries. But there's been a lot of talk about the COVID-19 as well, and we heard from Andreas Schleicher a very good presentation about the challenges that it has brought to the education world, and those are of course many, and you know all of that. In all your countries, there's been a lot of issues related to this and a lot of trouble. But it seems to also put a little bit of a damper and a little bit of a hindrance to understanding the bigger picture in the world at the moment, because the fact is that we're launching the new Erasmus Plus program in a globally very challenging time. It is not just that we don't have any physical mobility because of COVID-19, or it's very difficult to meet up with your project partners to carry on with your centers of vocational excellence work or with your partnership projects. But it is also a lot of other issues globally going on at the moment. We have the whole question of Brexit, of course, first of all. This is a very unfortunate situation for Europe. It's a big challenge for Europe. It's a big challenge for the UK, and I'm sure we can overcome it. But it does put a lot of questions in front of us when we're going into the new program period for the Erasmus Plus program. The UK will not anymore be automatically a partner of this cooperation. They have been a big part of what has taken place. We hope, of course, that we can continue the cooperation, and I'm sure that will be the case too in one way or another. But it still is a question in front of us. Another question that we seem to nearly have forgotten totally is the migration issue. Because of the COVID-19, all of the focus has been on closed borders, on no movement of people, on no possibility for mobility. But the fact is that we still have within Europe a big migrant population, but also outside of the European borders, especially in the developing countries, a huge population that is ready to migrate. There is an interest to migrate, there is a want to migrate. To some degree, the European economies also need this migration, but it also poses another challenge to Europe. Within Europe, at the same time, partially because of the migration, but partially also because of other issues within Europe, we have a radicalization happening. This is a huge challenge to the European setting as well and the European values. We have seen just recently, the other day in France, a very unfortunate situation involving the school sector and the professor there. But there's also been, of course, many other cases of radicalization, both homegrown European radicalization, but also radicalization that has to do with the global situation. We have the whole world event situation with the United States behaving in a slightly erratic fashion, maybe withdrawing from international cooperation, from global scenes, from international organizations, challenging China in a way that they have never done before. China's political and situation is very stable, but the economic situation is not as stable, and they are also facing big questions and big issues, and they're taking a much bigger role globally. And then we have the whole question, of course, very close to Europe, of how Russia interacts with its neighboring countries and its the republics surrounding Russia. There is a question of Ukraine, but more recently Belarus and so forth. And all this puts into a very challenging perspective the issue of launching a new Erasmus Plus program, especially a new Erasmus Plus program that is not just meant to be European cooperation, but also global cooperation, also for the VET sector, not just for higher education sector. So this is very important to keep in mind. At the same time, we heard a little bit from Andreas Schleicher about this, and he has spoken in many seminars about it. The fact that the future of our professions is not what we can estimate even today. The World Economic Forum said in 2016 already that 65% of our children entering primary school today will ultimately end up working in completely new job types that do not exist yet. So here is another question that we have to deal with as we're going into a new Erasmus Plus program period and the work we're doing. The next slide, please. It, for example, can take forms like this. The top picture is the Amazon Go store. It's a store without staff where you can just check out without also paying directly. You are in fact logged in to pay before you go into the store, and everything you collect there you just automatically get charged for. It's a very interesting concept. On the other side of the screen we have robotic legs that will change the way we look at the elderly care of the elderly population, but care of also the people with walking or mobility problems, but also the whole social and healthcare sector. And at the bottom there's a virtual plumber. So actually the person at home, let's say it's a mother that stays at home with her children, she's in fact doing the plumbing, and the guy on the wall is the actual plumber telling her what to do. So this sort of change and bridging of professions and crossing of also traditional sectors is something that all of you have heard a lot about in different seminars. But it's just important to kind of keep this in mind when we're going into this new program period. Yeah, the next slide, please. And the Finnish Skills Anticipation Forum is a body that is run by our organization, the National Agency for Education in Finland. And in its most recent work, it came up with a set of 15 top important skills for the future. And these are generic transversal skills. So we are not talking of sector-specific skills. And those are, of course, in the future important too. If you are going to fix a car, you do need to know the car technology. I mean, this is no question about it. And if you are going to take care of an elderly person, you do need to understand the physiology and the mental being of that older person. However, at the background of that, you also need a number of other skills. And this is where there's an interesting bridging also to what the Erasmus Plus program can provide. Because in fact, a lot of our research in Finland specifically that we've done around skills and international cooperation, international mobility, and the Erasmus Plus program shows that many of these type of skills, these transversal type of skills, are actually developed in international cooperation during mobility periods and when a student is working in another country. They are set in situations that are more challenging than their normal on-the-job learning experience, for example, and they evaluate, for example, customer-based services in a totally different way when they see that from a new cultural perspective. Problem-solving skills or ability to manage the whole is something that is very important in the future. So not focusing just on your own task, but being able also to link with your teammates and solve the problem at hand together. And the interesting thing about this is that competence development and training and education is, of course, a very local matter. It is so on the European level. It is a national issue. Every country decides on their own education system and training systems. But the fact is that competence development is also a very global matter. Through the increasing migration, through the global value change and the global trade, through the multinational companies that are present in each and every one of our nations today, and the common global challenges that we're facing, especially the challenges that come from the green future and digitalization and technological demands. These are all common global challenges where there are no boundaries. And here again, there's a real chance for the Erasmus Plus program and the activities that you propose for the Erasmus Plus program to be funded. So quickly, I'll show you the picture of how Finland has solved. Next slide, please. How Finland has tried to solve this issue. Many of you have seen this picture before. In 2018, Finland has had a new act for vocational education and training, and we brought together both initial and continuing vocational education and training into one system. A very learner-centered system, a very skills-based system that took up a lot of the valuable things from our old systems, but brought it under one umbrella. And now for 3 years, we've been implementing this new system, and it's starting to become a real model for how to run vocational education and training. There are still things to do. It is not a ready piece of work, but there are many of the things that Joao is also taking up, like personal competence development plan, versatile learning environments, flexible study times, broad-based qualifications with still specific skills in certain sectors, and demonstrated in practical work and work-based. So it all comes into this system, and this is our solution. There are, of course, many other solutions to these challenges as well. But the fact is that this system that we now have in Finland, for example, it fits very well together also with what the new Erasmus Plus program is proposing. So if you go to the next slide, please. The fact is that the new Erasmus Plus program is not yet decided. This is probably something most of you know as well. It's still under discussion. It's still under negotiation between the Parliament, between the member states, and between the Commission. So nothing has been finalized yet, but we do know a lot already. There has been, of course, the Commission proposals, and there's been further work on those. And we know, for example, that there will be a lot of continuity. We heard of some of the continuity from the executive agency, but also on the actions funded by the national agencies in all the countries will be more or less what has been funded before. So the key action 1 for learning mobility will be there, both for students and for teachers and trainers and other staff. There will be key action 2 activities with partnerships, both small and bigger partnerships. So those will also be there. And of course, with the COVID-19 situation, most likely, even the first year, there will be a greater focus on the partnerships and a smaller focus on the mobility, because most likely the COVID-19 situation will be continuing also into the next year. I mean, this is something that most of us now predict. Although I was a little bit like James, that I was thinking that this was going to be over already now, but unfortunately. So the big themes then, there will be new focus areas. If you can go one back, please, still. I would like to mention the big themes. Virtual cooperation will be, of course, a big theme with the digitalization of education. Inclusion issues, these come from the big political topics. European values, the question of radicalization, but also the question of democratic values. For VET sector in particular, the global cooperation will be enhanced, and there will be opportunity for global mobility outside of Europe, but also cooperation like we heard from the executive agency, and the green Erasmus issues. So to put this all in place, what are the requirements put on the VET providers? On the next slide, please. The fact is that there is a great demand for a more strategic viewpoint and on the work you're doing, taking into account the European strategies, the global issues and developments, the developments in the world of work, but also linking those with your local needs and national strategies. And this will be the big challenge in the next program period. I know a lot of you have done this work already, but having an institutional strategy with international components in it to really outline your work for the next 3 to 4, 5, 6 years, so that you can utilize the program the best is key. And this is something that you all need to work on. You have needed to work on it if you're already now applying for the accreditation within the mobility functions, but you need to work on it also to link with the centers of vocational excellence and with the partnerships. And this is key for your participation in the future program and for success to that participation. On the next slide, please. Luckily, there is also not the kind of old-fashioned, maybe locked down strategic idea, but it is really also about something that is fundamental to the Erasmus Plus program, of course, and that is creating something new and innovating a new future. So it's also about rethinking your own past, reconsidering your present concerns. This is especially important now with the COVID-19 situation, but most importantly, reimagining your own future. So it's not just forecasting what will happen in a few years, but you can, through the Erasmus Plus program, also really create your own new future. And this is where the strength of the program, of course, comes in. And it has a lot of flexibility built into it. The accreditation is one. The smaller size functions for newcomers to the program is another. But also, for example, the centers of vocational excellence with their more lump sum approach in the future should provide for an opportunity to do this sort of strategic work and to utilize the program to develop your institution and to empower the VET institutions in your own countries. So I hope this is an additive point of view to what Joao and Michelle had said before. So thank you from my part.
Thank you so much, Mika. You are spot on time, but not just that. I think what you have shared with us is extremely interesting, particularly when you spoke about the world of new skills and the skills of the future, because that's why we're here. We are here to have this predictive capacity to give students, but also to lecturing staff here, that capacity to foresee the future and to prepare our young people for the future that so far does not exist now. So, and I fully agree with you that the Erasmus Plus program almost holds the future of VET, because the projects that we come up with can only be financed, particularly with such money that comes from Erasmus Plus, whether it's visual cooperation, whether it's inclusion, whether it's the green economy, whether it's global cooperation. This is building the future of VET through an Erasmus Plus program, and I think your plea to us to come up with new ideas is very, very appropriate. I will ask our colleagues if there are any questions to our panelists, João Santos, Michelle Grombier, and Mika Saarinen. Are there any questions from our colleagues? We are on time, so Zoom will support another few minutes before we go out for break. Any questions? I don't see any hands up, so it means that everything has been clear, everything has been understood and appreciated by our colleagues. This concludes, so to speak, the first part of our conference, because now we have a 20-minute break. But before I ask everyone to go on break, I'm already having my delicious cappuccino here on my desk. I wish to say a big thank you to our conference team, Valentina in particular, Life and Panayotis, whom I'm seeing here in front of me, but others in our Brussels office and other members. Okay, mine is nicer, Valentina, than that. I can show it to you, but it tastes really good. But I really like this, this first part of the conference. It all goes well. Having 250 plus listening to what we are saying is an interesting number. The second part of the conference I will leave in the hands of my colleagues Stefano Turati, who is the vice president, and John Harding, who is Bridgewater and Taunton College and EfVET national representative, who have a very interesting panel discussion on good practice from EfVET members and the EfVET declaration on VET in the post-COVID-19 era. So for the time being, I will say thank you and see you in about 20 minutes.
Thank you very much. Coffee break, so we could share cappuccino, espresso with all our participants.
Thank you.
So everyone's, could see the PowerPoints. We would like also promoted our workshops that will take on the 5th of November. Please don't forget to sign up. The workshop 1, workshop 2, workshop 3, workshop 4, 5, and 6. Also for the roundtables. The roundtables will take place on the 19th of November at 2 o'clock. So you could submit your projects or other issues on the website here. And the marketplace, the same, will be take on the 19th of November at 15:30, but Brussels time Center European time. For registrations, it's the same as here in the website. Don't miss, and enjoy your coffee.
job. It's good.
Congrats, congrats.
Yeah.
Hi, John. Good luck.
Yeah. I've got me, just in case I get any problems, I've got me walkie-talkie.
And where is Stefano?
He's having his Italian coffee somewhere, I think.
Ah, there he is. Okay. Hi, Stefano.
Oh, the team is here.
Mr. Vice President. Can you hear me? Mr. Vice President. Stefano. Stefano.
Yes.
Can you hear me, Stefano?
He's there. He's coming.
Yeah, he's there. I can see him, but he's not talking to me.
I can now hear you.
Oh, that's
Some problem.
Pete. Pete's in there.
I can now hear you very well.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. I think we are going to start in 5 minutes.
Start the engines.
John, everything okay with the bus this morning?
Yeah, no problem. I had to have a word with a student that was annoying the bus driver. So I had to have a little word to say that you must be nice on the bus or you have to get off. So I have a lot of hot phones today, so it could go off at any time. As you can see, it's one of these days where duty manager and sort of COVID response lead for the institution. So, who knows?
Oh my gosh.
Good.
Oh my God.
You better
I have a cold, guys. I'm getting cold like ice.
You better go home and self-isolate then, Valentina.
Yes, I'm here isolated with the tea, hot water drinking. Stefano, it's there. Claire? Just check.
Claire's here, I think.
Claire?
Yeah.
Here I am, Valentina.
Okay. Andre?
Valentina.
I'm here.
Valentina.
Okay. Andrea? See, James?
Valentina, will John and Stefano conclude at 12:30? Or what was it?
I hope Stefano could manage.
Yeah.
Stefano was concluded.
We agreed, Mr. President, that we will conclude our session and you will make the conclusions for the conference.
So the conclusion, a few words from myself before we close.
Correct. Excellent.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Stefano or John, can you remind participants about the workshops and the roundtables in Marketplace?
I think, did someone mention it? Yeah.
I did mention it in the beginning, but not at the end. So you can mention it again, and then I'll mention it again at the end.
Stefano.
Thank you, John. Thank you, James.
Mi piace la nostra comunicazione, mi piace, adoro, come faccio senza di voi? Mi fate guarire.
Sapete, è vero che sentiamo tutti?
Sì, Sara,
certo.
mi mancano i tuoi figli, gemelle.
Via, parliamo in italiano per la seconda
Sì,
sessione.
Paolo,
dai.
certo, ok, ciao, sì, distruggere.
This is unacceptable. This is absolutely
Fate i bravi, fate i bravi.
We were missing Paolo.
Ciao Paolo.
Paolo è grande.
Contagio.
Stefano, Mario, ciao, parliamo in italiano.
Sì.
This is absolutely unacceptable.
Speak Portuguese, please.
Anyway,
okay,
great.
11:30.
Okay, 2 minutes.
1 minute. 1 minute and you're on.
My coffee was wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Mario. Ciao,
I'm
Mario.
Italian, but I had a tea. Strange situation.
Ciao, Sara.
Hey, Sarah.
Ciao.
Anyway,
Andrea is
physical
there.
conference. I mean, I miss it a lot.
Yes.
Can you imagine about us?
It's nice to see you
In
all.
particular,
I
the
can't
team.
see other Finnish, my colleagues. I see Peter Hodgson is there.
Hello, Pete. How are you?
Our former president.
Is he here?
Yeah, he was there.
Ah, okay. That's nice. Pete, I can't see him.
We do have also the first president, Jan Willem, who found EfVET.
I can't see Peter.
Calling me, Valentina.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, Peter's probably drinking coffee.
Yes, he's still in his coffee break. Right.
Oh, the glass of wine. Don't forget the glass of red wine. Everyone's remember it. Okay.
Vice
So,
President.
Mr. President.
Okay, I mute all and then Stefano, and I leave the floor to Stefano and John. I'll mute your microphone in 2 minutes. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so welcome back. Welcome back. And as James announced, I have the honor to co-moderate this session together with John Harding. John, are you there? Your
I'm
microphone?
Here.
Yes?
Hello.
Excellent. So in this session, we wish to show what resilience of vet providers can do, and to showcase some of the good practices and initiatives that have been developed during the COVID period by EfVET members. Recently, the World Health Organization have used this expression COVID fatigue, stating that 60% of Europeans are now experiencing sadness, loneliness, pessimism, tiredness due to this COVID-19 new wave. So we are delighted to introduce to you some EfVET colleagues who are part of the remaining 40% of Europeans. That, of course, our colleagues might have experienced sadness, who hasn't in this period, but they have decided to fight pessimism, to react, and to develop interesting new solutions for vet in different domains. May we go to the next slide, please, Valentina? So during this session, we will go through different areas, which are these ones: policy, entrepreneurship for vet, apprenticeships and work-based learning, how changing vet at school with online training, training of trainers, and digital competencies. We invite you, as you have done already earlier this morning, to use the chat in Zoom to share comments and or even to share references to other initiatives on the same areas. As part of the follow-up activities, your inputs in the chat will be collated in our speakers' presentations and distributed after the conference. Feel free also to post questions to our speakers, who will be able to answer them as a follow-up activities, because during this session we have quite a tight schedule. With any other further ado, let's start with the EfVET position paper on COVID. John, the floor is yours.
Yeah, welcome everyone. It's a bit strange, sort of through the screen and not being in Quadpio, but hey, so thank you, Stefano. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, as Stefano said, my name is John Harding. Back when the COVID pandemic started to peak, we decided as EfVET and some group members that are here at the moment is develop a policy paper on some of the subtitles you can see here: new graduates, mobility and digital skills. These we looked at is the best practices and an impact. So looking at mobility, and everyone knows mobility at the moment. Everyone's talking about virtual mobility, blended mobility, etc. And the impact on the institution and the impact on even the learners and the staff to be able to do a physical mobility. I think for us, it was the risk of exclusion of being part of that Erasmus program. Well, over the last couple of months, we've seen a lot of good practices in respect to the virtual mobility actually increases participants in a mobility at home, but actually a physical mobility because not everyone could go. So we collated some of the results and some of the implications of doing virtual mobility and the support we wanted from Erasmus Plus, the Commission and so on to support us in the COVID pandemic as we see. Then we looked at the digital skills in respect to having those digital skills and being able to speed up teaching and learning through using digital technology, because we switched in the UK from March straight to online teaching. And that has an impact on both staff and students, their ability to be able to engage in digitalization, social inclusion, poverty in respect to not having the facilities to do online learning. So we had to really look in the ways that we can use different technologies to support and help us, our learners and staff. And the risk, again, of, like I say, exclusion of people being part of VET because they can get online to do digital tools. And, you know, that was across the world and across Europe. So we looked at the ways that a lot of partners and a lot of these members supported and used different technologies to support digitalization. You will find the paper, as you see on the screen, in our policy documentation paper. If you click on there, feel free to read through. And, you know, if you'd like to add or any questions, please feel free to contact us. I've only got 3 minutes, so I need to be muted now. And I'll pass back to Stefano. Have a good conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you very much for reporting the outcomes of our consultation among EfVET members. Now the microphone will jump to Ewelina in Poland, and we will discover activities in the entrepreneurship field. Ewelina, what can we do to support entrepreneurship in VET during COVID times? Ewelina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Stefano. Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to be today to take part in this conference and to have the opportunity.
We cannot hear you properly, Ewelina. Maybe go closer to the microphone.
Now it's better?
Yes, much better. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to take part in this conference and to have the opportunity to present example of initiative implemented by OIC Poland Foundation focused on supporting incubation of innovative business ideas in the pandemic. The pandemic has impacted not only on business ideas of startups, but also the way how we work together with them. The starting platform Unicorn Hub is one of the most important projects implemented by the OIC Poland Foundation last year. It's co-financed by the European Union under the European Regional Development Fund with a total budget of more than 4 million euros. Its duration is more than 3 years, and we are going to finish the implementation of this project at the end of February 2023. So nowadays we are at the end of the second year of the project implementation. The main aim of the Unicorn Hub is to incubate 230 innovative business ideas. So it means to create 230 new companies, startups. The partnership of the project is composed of 14 partners representing different organizations, different branches and areas, but with a common aim to create the effective ecosystem supporting development of startups through incubation of innovative business ideas. Among the partners, there are business support organizations, higher education institutions like University of Economics and Innovation in Lublin, small and medium-sized enterprises, but also to venture capital funds and industry and InnoVenture. Also, I would like to mention that Amazon Web Services has also joined this partnership as a technological partner. The composition of the partnership is very crucial element of this project because it has been built based on the complementarity of the partners to be able to provide the startups with the services, with the support according to their needs and expectations, of course. What makes us different? So first of all, we support startups in the form of rounds. There are 7 incubation rounds and also 7 selection rounds. Before every incubation round, there is selection round. Further, we propose short, we can even tell that very short incubation program, but it's very intensive. It lasts only 4 months for startups invited to take part in the incubation program offered by the Unicorn Hub. And we work with 40 startups in every incubation round. So nowadays we are in the 4th round and we are working with the 42 startups. Furthermore, we are focused only on 3 sectors. We are concentrated on them: ICT, medicine, and transport smart cities. We provide startups with workshops, with basic services, specialized services, just to develop and verify the business model and to help them to complete the program with MVP. Every startup is working with 12 experts in different areas, from different sectors, depending, of course, on the business idea and the needs of the startup. And finally, what is very crucial and very important, the incubation program for every startup starts from the development of individual incubation program adapted to the business ideas, to needs and expectations of every startup. So it means that every incubation program is the unique one. And the scheme of incubation program, the scheme of the incubation program is all the same for all the rounds. So we start from the design sprint. It's a 2-day workshop aiming at establishing of the individual incubation program. After that is a road execution round one. It's a 2-day meeting, also in primary focused on summarizing the work and defining the further steps. In the 7th week, there is another design sprint follow-up meeting for the startups. And in the 10th week, it's a demo day, 1-day meeting. In the 13th week, it's a roadmap execution meeting. And finally, it's an official Unicorn demo day. So you can see that during the 16 weeks of the incubation program, there are a lot of activities. The third round was very special because it has started at the beginning of the pandemic. So all the activities were transferred from the face-to-face activities into online activities. During all these events, which you have seen before in the previous slide, there were 310 participants who took part in all of them, and all of them, they were implemented as online events. And what are the achievements at the end of this long presentation? 76 startups completed the incubation program till now. 72 received the recommendation of the Unicorn Hub starting platform. 3 rounds are completed. 645 application forms we have received during the selection rounds, and 81% of startups who completed our incubation program have received the grant 1 million zloty. So thank you very much for your attention. If you would have any question, I am at your disposal.
Thank you, Evelina. I think if there's any questions in that, please put it in the chat, or any good practices you see from this as well. So thank you very much. If we can go to the next slide, Valentina. So I would like to welcome Paulus, looking into apprenticeships. And just a question, what can we do to make apprenticeship positive during the COVID pandemic? Over to you, Paulus. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a big pleasure to be here. And I would like to start from the apprenticeship in Lithuania, which as a form of organizing vocational education and training is quite recent phenomenon in Lithuania. We started just only in 1997, according to the law on vocational education and training. And during the last year, on the strict recommendations of Lithuanian government, we have raised the task to reach or achieve 20% of all learners at vocational schools to provide their vocational education in a form of apprenticeship. So at our training center, we achieved 11% from the year 2018 to the year 2019. But then the pandemic started and we raised a lot of problems and lost 4% of our apprentices. And then we have to investigate all the good practices to find a solution or simple instruments to solve the problem. So we decided to take advantage in the results of our project called Individual Learning Plan to work-based learning and adopt those results to our apprenticeship situation in our center. And so today I have two simple messages. What helped us to stabilize apprenticeship in our organization. First is development of individual learning plan. And the second is support of all participants of apprenticeship with an open educational resources. So traditionally, apprenticeship is conducted in accordance with the approved vocational education program in terms of time and content. But under pandemic, we appeared a lot of restrictions, distance, contacts, time of isolation, and so on and so on. The consistent implementation of apprenticeship was not possible. So we started differently with the individual learning plan for apprenticeship. That plan allows combine manual work at the company, substantive work, online training, and other forms of education. So let's start with the main things or aspects when developing the individual learning plan. First, with the assessment of existing experience. The individual learning plan must be based on the assessment of the professional experience of the apprentice. It helps identifying and recognizing learners' existing skills, avoiding repeating acquisition of curriculum content. Next step is setting goals, which must follow the individual learning plan and the goals to agree all the parts of the apprenticeship. Individualization of the training program, which should include a personalized learning approach that identifies competences of each individual assessed and gives students opportunity to steer their own education pathways, increasing their engagements, motivation, and well-being. Training planning should be planned with a specific timing. Non-work-based learning must also link to work-based learning. Planning of the key skills development the competences have to be planned to meet the needs of the SSE, which are evident in the assessment of the apprentice's professional experience, and consistent development of missing competences empowers companies in establishing trustful relationship with their future employees. Next slide, please.
So 1 minute left, Alice. Sorry, 1 minute left, okay?
Yeah, I know. So the next step was the development of open education resources, which helps all the participants of apprenticeship to go to the apprenticeship more well. So the resources are 10 steps to implement the work-based learning, concept of apprenticeship, rights and responsibilities, the process of organizing apprenticeship, and assessment of learning achievement gained in the real workplace. I know that the time is running out, so I will finish with this. Thank you very much. Wish you stay well and healthy. And all the further information you can find at our web page. And of course, you can raise the question through the emails.
In the chat. Thank you, Paulus. Just go over to Stefano, but it'd be great if we can put some things in the chat about where people have got good practice in apprenticeship. And there's a question in the chat. It'd be great to have some information in there and some questions at the end. But thank you, Paulus. Over to you, Stefano.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paulus, for sharing your experience on work-based learning and apprenticeship. In this period, we cannot travel, but at least the microphone during this meeting is jumping from different corners of Europe. So from Lithuania now is jumping straight to Cyprus. Thank you, Georgos. Welcome to be here in this session. Georgos, your focus today is online teacher training. So according to your perspective, what are the key elements that makes a good online training for trainers and teachers?
Good morning, Stefano. Thank you for the welcoming and for the question, which is quite relevant to the practice we have chosen to share. We at Eurosuccess Consulting from Cyprus. The good practice we are going to share with all of you is based on the European project On Your Remarks, a project which was funded under the Erasmus Plus program, KA2 Action. This project had a duration of 2 years. It's finalized just a month ago. Next slide, Vale. Thank you. The main aim of our project, just to give you the preliminary information, had to do with the promotion of entrepreneurship through the development of key competences for both learners and educators, in order for the first ones to be able to improve their entrepreneurial capacity and to initiate or organize further their business and reach current markets online. Through the project, within the project, various types of organizations were participating from different European countries. Cyprus, Poland, Spain, France, Italy, and Romania. The main results of our project, the intellectual outputs were 5, study on the online presence of a business, handbook with guidelines for efficient online strategies, pedagogical strategy for VET educators, toolkit for VET educators, which was including training materials and tools, and open e-learning course, which hosted and developed materials and activities which were implemented from the partnership. Next slide. Thank you. Now, the practice I want to share, to briefly share with you, is basically through the implementation of the second learning, teaching, and training activity of the partnership. Initially, at the proposal stage, it was planned to be implemented physically. Due to COVID-19, of course, the partnership decided to have it implemented purely online, having a 10 days training with morning and afternoon sessions via Zoom platform, where 30 people participate from all the partner countries. And the method we have chosen to organize and implement the activity was through a collaboration of the partnership. Therefore, each partner was both responsible for the recruitment of the participants as well as the actual delivery of the activity. Next slide, please. The activity was based on 7 thematic areas: communication skills, ethics, spotting opportunities, working with others, social media management, decision making, and problem solving. And now to the main challenges. As partnership, we had assessed some of them prior to the organization of the activity, but also, of course, we had to face some of them during the activity. The most important were lack of face-to-face engagement interaction among the participants because of the online methodology, technical challenges, poor internet connection, or some of the participants not to be familiar with online tools, keeping the session and the interest of the participants on track because of the online methodology, to be able to attract the interest for participation and reach the expected number of participants during the recruitment process, and of course, efficient time management of the agenda. And now, what we have learned? We have learned first and foremost that organization and efficient collaboration is very, very important at 2 levels. One, at each partner level, each organization needs to have skilled and experienced personnel in order to be able to organize and implement such activity. but also at the second level, at partnership level, all organizations from the different countries, they need to effectively collaborate together in order to achieve the best possible result. Interactive activities and tools are very important to be available for the participants in order to keep them involved and stimulated, as well as for them to have clear guidelines and expectations as to what is expected from them during the activity and what they will gain at the end of the session. Good audio and video quality, of course, is vital. Therefore, if you are choosing to go with online activities, we highly recommend that you have a premium or business account with the platform which you are going to choose to go with. And last but not least, experienced trainers and facilitators. For the dealing with the online training, these two actors are the most important actors on our experience, since they are the ones who will deliver effectively the activity on one side, and on the second side, they are the ones who will have to tackle effectively any unexpected situations, challenges, and problems which they may arise during the online training. Here you can see some screenshots from our training sessions with both theoretical and practical delivery of the session. That's it from our side. On behalf of Eurosuccess, thank you very much. I'm at your disposal for any questions or need for clarifications. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you very much. Great, great insight into entrepreneurship and online training and so on. So thank you very much, and good stuff. And some good things coming in the comments and things as well. As Stefano says, we'll collect them and put them in the presentation and probably mention a few when we come towards the end as well. Thank you very much. Valentina, just the next slide, and I need to introduce the next person, but I'm afraid she won't be able to be with us due to illness and so on. So that's sad, but she's put a lot of effort into this. Okay, Stina, Technical Education Copenhagen. Some of my Danish colleagues are here anyway, so it's in the box. It's a perspective of vocation. It's gone. Valentina, just the title. Teaching during the COVID sort of pandemic. So this is a short video, so listen to. So hopefully put some stuff in the chat to reference the video. So thank you very much to Stina. Even though she's not here, we'll listen to the video.
Back to almost normal in the workshops and in the classrooms at the school. And we are all crossing our fingers that we will not be sent back home again. But now meet 3 of our teachers and a student who share their experiences from this springtime, from March to July, when we were all sent home to teach or study online because of COVID-19.
Yeah, it was a difficult time. Everything was up, and we need to think out of the box. They want to be electrician because they want to work with their hands and not only sit by a screen and listen to what we have to say to them. So they want to have it in the hands. They want to have that opportunity to understand it that way. Normally we're in areas like this where they do all the practical subjects, but at home we didn't have the opportunity. So we managed to make a Corona kit, which they picked up at the school, and they can do some practical job at home. The good things for the students this way was that they were able to work with their hands with the practical exercises, and not only listening for what I have to say to them, but also learn it through their hands. There was definitely some of students who enjoyed this this way to teach or learn, because they not feel they suit in a classroom. All the noises, all the things that are going on in the classroom, they can handle it all at the same time and focus at the work.
One good advice for the teachers is to make videos on the material that they're going through in math, let's say that, just make some videos for the students so they can go through them and they can do it. They have access to them 24/7, and you don't have to go through the material over and over and over again. The students can see what you were doing in these videos and couldn't have so much to ask if you explain everything. And you might not explain everything every time you go through it live, or so that could be a solution when teaching on Zoom. Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of the students did not pass the exams that they had to pass, or they did not do the work that they were supposed to do, especially if it was written work or big exercises or something like that. They didn't get it done because the fact that they were sitting at home and not in a school setting meant that their brain could just not relate to what they were supposed to do. And so unfortunately, these students have to redo a lot of the classes, which means they haven't passed on to the next level of their education. And they have to redo these classes again, or they have to redo the exams again. And it's very demotivating for a person who is super intelligent and smart enough to get through this education. But because of the whole situation of being at home, it has blocked the brain in a way, and the students say that themselves, that they feel a block in their brain.
I couldn't feel them. Like I didn't have that touch with them. When it's a screen between you, you lose some of the social thing, where when I'm in the classroom, I can see on a person if he can do it or not, and I can go and help him, and I can see other people that maybe master it, and I can tell them, please go and help these students that can't do it yet. It's way more difficult online, seeing that when you're 20 people on, some without cam, some with but are noisy, and it's really a mess compared to being in a classroom.
Another one is to just have the students turn on their webcam. It's much more, you get them to focus a lot more when you have the webcam on, and when you tell them to as well. So you feel they're there, and they feel that you are there. So
one time I had a Zoom meeting where we were having this discussion, and suddenly my computer, I was sharing my screen, and something went wrong. And I'm not the biggest computer guy, and I couldn't figure it out. And then one of the students said, hey Christian, can you give me the controls? And in Zoom you can give the remote control to another user. And he went in and did something. I could see my mouse going around and doing stuff and writing. And then suddenly it worked again. And he was like, here you go, Christian, and gave up control, and we could move on. And I thought it was such a class example of, I make mistakes too, and they helped me without teaching or anything. They were just really want to help me, and we could just move on. And I also think it's a really good example of the respect I had for the student, and the student had for me, that he could take control of my computer and help me, and then just go out again. So it can help, and the students are really good at helping us teachers.
Christian is back teaching math again. He is online, and he's also available live. He's using his material in his flipped classroom. And so let's give the last word to Tom.
make videos.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Valentina, and thanks to Stine and the team from Copenhagen to assemble this video in no time for the conference. I'm sure Valentina shared the link on YouTube to this video in the chat. So if you wish to view again the relevant advice coming from Denmark, then please watch it again. You can use the link there in the chat. And now I have the pleasure to pass the floor and introduce two glorious coordinators of EfVET thematic team on internationalization and mobility. So we have with us today Andrea Lombardi and from Italy, and André Schoonhoven from the Netherlands. I could never pronounce it correctly, surely. But I would like to take this opportunity to also welcome and congratulate with two new coordinators of this thematic team, Mari Konturi from Finland. I hope Mari also is online, as well as Silvia Higin from Hungary. Also difficult pronunciation. Congratulations to you, Mari and Silvia, to take this new challenge and cooperate with Andrea and Andre on this on EfVET thematic team on internationalization and mobility. So, Andrea and Andre, what EfVET members can do to contribute to rise attractiveness of VET in Europe? What can these thematic teams, EfVET thematic teams, can do? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Stefano. Thank you. Good morning, EfVET. Good morning, everybody. What me and Andre will try to do in the next 10 minutes is indeed to bring you in the core of the EfVET mission through what the thematic team internationalization and learning mobility is working on. So we really want to share with you two new initiatives that our thematic team is about to launch. First of all, a quick sum up of what we've been doing so far. As you can see, we've been meeting, we were born as a thematic team in 2018 in Como, and then we met quite regularly 2 times in 2019, and also this year in 2020 in virtual in Malta. We had our first online meeting with the 120 people connected for 2 days. It was a really great event. Many activities has been done alongside our meetings, such as a report on internationalization in VET that you can find on EfVET website. Based on that report, we really investigated the needs of our community or our members related to development of internationalization and learning mobility, and the 2 initiatives we will present today, they are indeed a result of the pathway we had in these 2 years to try to find an answers to these members' needs. Of course, we also work on workshops during EfVET conferences. So we had last year in Azores, internationalization and learning, an internationalization at home workshop. We will have a workshop this year as well. We will come to that. And of course, our ambition is also to have every year in the first part of the year, a thematic team annual meeting, as we had in San Sebastian in 2019, and this year online. But let's move forward and go to see, I'm sure that everybody is very curious about that, what are the 2 initiatives, and I pass the floor to Andre to present the first one.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrea. Good morning, everybody. The first initiative that we want to talk about is something that you all can be a part of, because what we are looking for is you as a member of EfVET. It can be you as an international coordinator, it can be managers, but we are looking for EfVET members who would like to dedicate a little bit of their time to other EfVET members, so to be a coach, to coach the other ones who have a special need or a question that they would like to solve. So we call it the Coaches and the Athletes initiative, because we want it to be an active activity. It's not something that is like chatting a little bit, but the athletes, they really have a question, they have a learning need, and the coaches can be the ones to help them to solve it. Why do we think this could function? Because I think we all are working on the attractiveness of VET. This is very important. Somebody said this morning already, to make VET a first choice. I don't know if it has to be a first choice, but it has to be an attractive choice for young kids to come to, and to try to learn what they need to work in this complicated world of work that they are going to participate in. And I think on the other hand, we have a huge potential in EfVET. If you look at all the people who are doing projects, I think there must be hundreds of projects, maybe thousands of projects run and participated by EfVET members, tens of thousands of mobilities run by EfVET members. So I think we have a lot of potential And on the other hand, we are still a growing organization. So it's also that there's there's new members, people who are not as experienced. So the general idea is that the experienced members help the less experienced members. So in discussion with our thematic team, we identified four big themes. One is about strategy development. One is about learning mobility. Of course, KA2, KA3 projects, there's many people who are having experience in that. And also internationalization at home, which maybe there are not so many people who already have experience in that. We still have to learn a lot in that, but I think it's something that is very important and we have to grow in that. So what we would like to do is, maybe we can do the next slide. Yes, we already launched this call for coaches. Maybe you already received an email about it. If not, please send a message to the EfVET office and you will get all the information how it's working and to launch your own application to become a coach. In December, we will do the same for the athletes. So if you have a question, if you have something that you would like to learn from any of the other EfVET members regarding these 4 topics, you can launch your application in December, and then in February we will start the actual coaching for 4 months, and in May the end of the coaching will be done. So, and then of course we have an evaluation part. So again, please, if you have any time, or if you would like to spend some time to share with other members to raise the level of VET in Europe, please send in your application and to make this a successful initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andre. Please, can you come back with the slide? Not so fast, please. Okay, thank you. The second initiative we are going to introduce, and in here our thematic team is trying really to give support to the whole organization beyond our mission, which is internationalization and learning mobility, because this is going to be a call to create the first EfVET training course catalog that we will launch in 2021. So all the training courses that will be shared into the catalogs are of any topic. This is important to say. And the reason, as you can imagine, is that we've been mentioning, we heard speakers talking about that, teachers training is something very crucial in the time in general it is, and especially in the time we are going through. So the 9th of November, the call will be open to collect offers from members, any member organization that can offer teachers training and would like to share these opportunities for members can apply. And the 15th of December, the call will be closed. Then we will see a timeline as well. Please, next slide. Let's see a little bit more what the call is about. As I said, you can apply to enroll your training course into the 2021 catalog. The training courses can be from any sector or topic. They must be addressed to staff, so it's staff training. They can be in person, they can be online or blended, depending what is your type of offers. And of course, we can imagine that many of these courses can be attended also as a staff mobility. We're really looking forward to be able to move again and also attend this opportunity in person, but online and blended are more than welcome, especially right now. So through your application, then you can describe in details your offer, the offer of your institution. And then next slide, please. Here we can see in November, we will open the call and we will, after it will be closed the 15th of December, we will have some time to go through all the applications and create the catalog that we will launch in in February 2021. And then we imagine that many of the courses will take place during 2021, and we will start evaluating the initiative in September, along with all the organizations that participated, in order to improve the initiative for the next year. Both initiatives are meant to be not only a one-shot initiative. We really aim to create some activities for members that can be regular activity for our community. As it was in the initial slide, what we are trying to do as a thematic team is to create initiatives from members to members, which is something very important, we think, into a network like EfVET. Before saying you goodbye and thanking you for your attention, let me remember you that the 5th of November, there will be one of the workshops that you can choose is our workshop for our thematic team. It will be on blended mobility, a challenge for the future. So me and Andre and the other coordinators, Silvia and Mari, we look forward to see you there at the workshop. Thank you very much and have a nice conference.
Thank you, Andrea and Andre. I like the promotion of the workshop in November. As my president said, I just need to mention that as well, but we'll do that at the end. Thank you very much. Some really good information, really good structure, and really good things to talk about. There's a few comments that I'll mention when I feedback in a couple of minutes. But I have the pleasure of introducing Claire to look at the selfie and work-based learning. And just a quick question, Claire, just to go on, how can we support the improvement of technology and enhance learning in VET? I'll pass over to Claire. It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for giving me the floor on this topic related to technology enhanced learning and to digitalization in VET. Well, this morning, many highlights and focus were already made on the necessity to increase the use of technology in VET. And also, Mr. Santos explained that digitalization of VET is one of the main actions to be implemented at EU level. And for sure, due to the COVID-19 crisis, technology is used at a scale never seen before in education and learning. And at the same time, most of the teachers were not used to this distance and online tool before this crisis. Therefore, there is a real need to make better use of digital technology for teaching and learning, and a need to help VET school to self-evaluate where they stand and how they can set up or improve their digital strategy and their digital plan. Well, in the previous digital education plan, there was already a tool that were implemented called Selfie. It's a self-assessment tool that was developed by GRC, the Joint Research Center of the European Commission, and launched in 2018, but within the field of general education. And it was agreed that there was a need for adapting Selfie to work-based learning context. Next slide, please. Thank you. Well, on this map, you can see our partnership for this project. So Selfie for work-based learning is piloted by EfVET and is implemented in 4 countries, France, Germany, Poland, and Hungary. And there is a 5th partner, which is a center of research from Slovenia, who is taking care of all the research component. And 25 regions are involved, almost 60 VET colleges, more than 80 companies in a very wide diversity of training fields and economic sectors. Next slide, please, Valentina. Okay. So what is really Selfie? Selfie is a self-reflection tool. It's free. You can use it for free. It's online. It doesn't matter how small or big center you are. It doesn't matter how advanced or not you are in the digitalization process. It helps your school to assess where you stand and to improve the way you will use digital tools for teaching and learning. And what is very interesting is that you can have a dialogue between the main actors of apprenticeship, who are the learners, the teachers, the school leaders, but also the in-company trainers. And it is also important to say that all the data is anonymous. Next slide, please. Okay, so by using Selfie, you will have a state of the art regarding your digital practices. And you can see on the right side of the slide what kind of reports will be generated. And it will allow you to identify your strengths, your weaknesses, and in which area you have to improve. And of course, thanks to this state of the art, the most important thing is that it will help you to set up, to develop, or to improve your digital strategy and your digital plan. Next slide, please. Okay, so there are two steps in this Selfie for Work-Based Learning project. The first one is to pilot the tool in the 4 countries. So each of our 4 national coordinators, we have selected 12 vet schools, 12 companies, and some stakeholders like professional branches or Chamber of Commerce. And we have translated and adjusted the Selfie tool to the work-based learning context. And we are currently monitoring the pilot process in all our vet schools. And we also need to have a very important completion rate to have representative data. Next step, Valentina, please. The second step is focusing on qualitative research. So as you can see, there are 4 steps. The first one is desk research. It has already been realized by EfVET, and the aim was to identify the national strategy in each of our countries regarding digitalization process. Then we will implement focus group with teachers and learners to go deeper in the discussion. Then we will have in-depth interviews with in-company trainers and with vet school staff. And we will end this pilot with 2 case studies, which means that we will see, thanks to the previous step, which vet school is the more advanced in the digitalization process and the one which is the less advanced, in order to see what kind of levels we can have and which obstacle need to be tackled. And all the data analysis and the research component is carried out by our Slovenian partner. Well, this project will end by the beginning of 2021. And of course, we will be happy to share with you the results of this project and how it can help you to implement your digital strategy. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very good structured presentation, I think, everyone. So yeah, just for me, I'd just like to thank all the speakers, every day's all the work. I think, you know, I don't know if we can do a virtual clap, but I don't know how that works, but hey, I think well done to all the people that done all the work. And so I think it's been a very structured and very sort of information across, you know, work-based learning, online technology, etc. Just to reflect on some of the, you know, talking about good practice, and I'm just picking on Stina's one just because I went in education to support learners and so on, and that learner talking about having more videos to work with, to have more videos and stuff for digitalization, I think was a very good, valid point. I think, you know, one of the good aspects of the virtual learning or learning from home is a lot of students get more involved, because in a classroom setting, they're very sort of reserved and want to get involved and stuff. I think you get more participant, but what you miss is a little bit of that physical sort of connection and so on. But I think we're living in that blended approach now in the way that we work. I think just going back through and picking up some of the comments that, you know, comments I've made down, you know, looking at to engage employers. And I think one was talking about how we use the tool, and personalization is more necessary than before for COVID. Actually setting a personalization plan for an individual is quite key to do with COVID. I think looking at the entrepreneurship, online training and stuff like that, I think a lot of this has been done prior, but I think what we need, and a lot of people mention, is that upskill for teachers. A lot more of that needs to be supported, because I think a lot of us went into that pandemic straight away, virtual learning, off we go. And, you know, people using different technology, different tools. So I think it was a good, rich information. You know, from the guys doing the the thematic groups, the coaches, and we talked about coaches and athletes, and I think one was mentioned. And I think the definition between what is a coach, what's an athlete, and I think we can discuss that further in respect to people understand what is the difference. But I think that is on the EfVET when you apply. I think it gives you more of a definition. I think one other thing as well that someone mentioned in there was about having a collection of good videos that EfVET can do on all the good practices that we do in using virtual technology, virtual learning. I think that's a really good thing. And I think Paniota's mentioned in the chat that that's happening. That will be coming. And I think we're working on that and the good practice case studies. And I think that's apparent to support each other, because I think for us and for me as an institution, some people start to use so many different software, so many different technologies. And I think we need to streamline it a little bit more, because when you're throwing 5 or 6 different technologies at a learner or a member of staff, it's very, very difficult to then sort of structure that and be so coherent. So for me, all the information that we had on here will go into the PowerPoint presentations from all our people that spoke. I'm just conscious of time because I can see my Italian friend looking at me through the screen thinking that's 3 minutes you've had. Yes, that would go on the PowerPoint presentation. But for me, a great thank you. Me to back up the thank you from James to Valentina and the team. I think it's really worked really well this morning. So thank you, everyone. And pass back over to Stefano.
Thank you, John. Yes, indeed, I'm looking at the time. It was really a big challenge to condense all these contributions in 1 hour, and we really made it. So I would like to thank all the speakers. My last remark is that I believe that out of this COVID pandemic, we have observed that there has been a rise in public awareness on 2 dimensions. One is greening our society and reaching carbon neutral Europe, and the other one about the relevance of digital skills and competencies. So my last call to action to EfVET members and participants today is to look into our opportunities to get engaged within EfVET. We, as a follow-up activity of this selfie work-based learning, we could relaunch a thematic team on technology enhanced learning. So I saw also some comments in the chat about this. And I'm very, very happy to share with you the information that we are just about to launch a new thematic team on green EfVET. So you have perceived the energy and the passion of our colleagues leading these working groups. And so you can imagine what we can do together if we share energies and vision and cooperate on these key areas. So it's 12:29, so we are in perfect timing, and I'm very proud of it because it was difficult to reach this. And yes, maybe a virtual clap to our speakers. They well deserve it. And of course, as a tradition, the final word is on Mr. President James Calleja. James, the floor is yours for the final conclusions of this morning's session.
Well, thank you very much, Stefano. Thank you, John. Thank you all the speakers of this last session, which I think captures the essence and the spirit of what EfVET is all about. We are all about good practice. We are all about cooperation. We are all about sharing all this information and making the lives of lecturers and students even better, even though we are faced with this invisible enemy called COVID-19, which I thought it would not go beyond summer, but now it's going beyond 2020. And if I look at the question again, is it a new generation of vets? I think with or without COVID, inevitably, the workplace is changing so fast. Technology is rapidly changing, and I think vocational education and training is probably the right place where learners should be in order to meet the challenges of Industry 4.0 and of the changes that the workplaces are experiencing. I think this morning we have really experienced a number of ideas that came from the speakers, the panelists. But I think what has featured very clearly is that we are bored with having online learning for so long, but yet online learning is the answer to a situation in which people cannot interact. Physical interaction has been seen as an essential part of learning, and we cannot deny that, because education is all about physical interaction, maybe social interaction as well, as we call it, but this is all about meeting people and making people better for a better quality of life. Virtual conference is not the same experience as we have had in Como, as we have had in Ponta Delgado. This is inevitable. I do miss what goes on intellectually, but I miss even more what goes on socially, because the networking when people meet is fantastic. But this is the situation today. But I think we have made a good job, a very good job. Our conference team, Valentina, Life, Panayotis, Stefano, and all the people that have been involved have made a very, very good job out of this situation. And we have shown that notwithstanding the difficulties, we can rise above it and we can still interact and make EfVET great. I know this is a quotation which reminds you of somebody who said something on these lines, but I think EfVET is getting greater and getting better. And this is what I augur for the future. We shall be meeting again on the 5th of November for the workshops, and on the 19th for the roundtables and the marketplace. And you have seen from the example that has been given before about the EfVET training course catalog, how practical we can be and how interactive we can actually be. I really support such initiatives, and this is the way other people who are not EfVET members will look upon us and will link their efforts to ours to make the voice of VET stronger and stronger at European level. So a big thank you to all the conference team, to all the participating members. I can see now that there are about 218, but this morning they were touching the 260, so that is very promising. To all the speakers, the panelists, and the colleagues coming from the Commission, a huge thank you to you all, because you really made this online conference a success. So for the future, for our history books, after Como, we had Delgado, Ponta Delgado. Now we will have online 2020. It sounds strange, but there is no other way of defining a success story as we had this morning. Thank you all.
And now I would like to take a picture. So please, could you open your camera for the records? Yes, makeup, please open your camera, and Victoria and me and Maria João will take a screenshot. All of us, okay? Smiling with the hands, do what you wish, dancing, screaming, as you wish.
Valentina.
So anytime, screaming, dancing, yes, Justina, like this, because a lot of people, so it's 230, and we have to manage to take picture of you. Nice to see you, great. Smiling.
Hello,
Yes,
Valentina.
welcome. Open your camera, smiling. Some people maybe still went out having lunch, but never mind. So I see there are many people outside, but never mind, it's lunchtime, smiling.
Valentina, someone's asking you a question.
Yes.
No? Okay.
The last smiling. Yep, finish. See you in Skopje.
I think one last thing, idea, Valentina, is that we should have a new project called EfVET Got Talent.
Thank you also my team. Thank you, Maria Joa and Victoria, for supporting and other issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all of you, and see you later. Buon appetito. Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao ciao. Mangiate, divertitevi. Buon dia.
Ciao.
Buon dias.
Fate come adesso siamo liberi.
Bye
Ciao
bye.
a tutti. Sì.
Ciao.
Grazie. Bye. And the PowerPoint and the video, so we will share with you on Monday. I will share with you with the conference team.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Goodbye.
Ciao.
And evaluations, also evaluations. Don't forget to put 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. That's the best.
Bye bye.
Ciao, ciao. Ciao,
Ciao.
Mario. Ciao, anche Mario qui.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank
Ciao.
you.
Caterina, see you on the
Yes.
Stefano, tutti mancano, tu e io facciamo un po' casino e panoches. Cioè, mancano. Diranno crazy people. No, oh, scusate. Carlos, ciao Carlos.
Valentina, Jan Willem speaking.
Yeah?
I'm leaving, but I want to compliment you and EfVET. I'm very proud. I never thought EfVET would reach this level. I'm excited. Thank you very much.
Jan Willem, he is the first president and he founder of EfVET in 1990.
Yes. After Christ was born.
Yes, congratulations. So we'll see you next week.
Yes, you will.
I agree with Jan Willem.
Thank you, Adriana. You too, because you are founders. So you see, we do have two founders of EfVET from Netherlands.
Hello, Adrian.
Hey, Jan Willem. How are you?
I'm very happy after this morning. It was wonderful to participate in this conference, and I'm impressed what the VET colleges are able to do and what EfVET can mean for those colleges. It's a very, very good network.
Thank you.
I'm happy.
I agree.
Thank you so much.
And I congratulate EfVET.
Yes.
Valentina, are we still recording all these words? Because in difficult times, we will listen to them on and on and on again.
Yes.
It's really, thank you very much. We are here because of you, so we are very grateful. Thank you very much.
I want to repeat those words every week if you want to online.
Yes, please.
I think it's
Thank you, Jan Willem. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your kind words.
Peter was there somewhere.
Peter, where
Thank
is he?
you, Peter, as well.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Peter and Leif are both there.